My name is Ellen Murphy, and I'm 28 years old. If you asked anyone who knew me, they'd probably describe me as grounded, maybe even predictable. I had my own apartment, a steady job in IT, not glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me peace of mind. My friends often joked that I was the responsible one in the group, the one who didn't gamble on love or career, the one who always had an emergency fund tucked away. They weren't wrong. Stability was my anchor. That's probably why Dylan was drawn to me in the first place. He was 24 when we met, finishing his degree, constantly broke, and juggling internships and part-time shifts at a cafe. He was charming, though the kind of guy who could walk into a crowded room and immediately collect a dozen smiles. When he looked at me, he used to say I made him feel safe. He said I grounded him, and I believed him. In those early days, I thought I'd finally stumbled onto something real. I'd pick him up from campus after his late-night classes so he wouldn't have to wait for the bus. I'd surprise him with groceries when his fridge had nothing but expired milk and wilted spinach. He'd flash me that grateful smile and kiss my cheek, whispering, "You're too good to me, Ellen." I thought he meant it. When his lease ended, moving him into my apartment felt natural. My place was bigger, quieter, and safer than his old setup with two quarrelsome roommates. Rent and utilities were already in my name, so I just kept covering them. Dylan offered to contribute, but with his erratic income, it never amounted to much. He'd hand me a crumpled 20 or 30 when he could, apologizing with that sheepish grin. I waved it off. "Don't worry about it," I told him. "We're a team. When you graduate and start working, we'll even it out." And I meant that too, because to me, love was about carrying the weight for each other when one person couldn't. For a while, I convinced myself it was enough. But even in those early months, little cracks began to show. Dylan had always loved attention. It started innocently snapping selfies, posting them on Instagram with captions like, "Grind never stops," or "Late night study hustle." I didn't think much of it. Everyone's online nowadays. But soon the comments started rolling in. Heart emojis, "Looking good, bro." Sometimes more forward, "Damn, someone's fine." At first, I laughed it off. Doesn't it bother you that half your followers are thirsty girls, I teased one night while scrolling through his phone? He just smirked. "Relax. They're just boosting my confidence. It's not like I'd ever go for them." I forced a smile and let it slide, but inside it pricked something raw. Then there were the jokes, the little digs. Like the Friday night, I suggested we order takeout and watch a movie after a long week. Dylan leaned back, eyebrows raised, and chuckled. "God, Ellen, you're such a grandma. Don't you ever want to do something exciting?" Or the time his friends came over sprawled across the couch. I paid for sipping the wine I'd bought, and one of them teased, "Man, Dylan, you're basically dating your mom. She works, she cooks, she takes care of you. What do you even do in this relationship?" I waited for him to defend me, to laugh it off and say, "Don't talk about her like that. She's amazing." Instead, Dylan grinned and piled on, "Yeah, she's basically married to her spreadsheets." He laughed, even as I sat right beside him. It stung, badly. But I brushed it off the way I always did. I told myself he was just young careless with words, still figuring himself out. That once life settled down, once he got a stable job, he'd start appreciating me more. That was my mistake. Because even as I poured more of myself into keeping him afloat, late-night drives to campus cooking, when he stressed over exams, cleaning up so he could focus, I never noticed how lopsided it all was. Looking back, I realized Dylan didn't crave partnership. He craved adoration. He loved the stability I gave him. Yes, but he also loved the thrill of being admired by Smurfisers. And the longer I ignored the cracks, the wider they grew. The first real blow came at a party. We were sitting in a circle, drinks in hand, when one of his friends, tipsy and loud, blurted out, "How do you not get bored with Ellen? She's so tame." My chest tightened. I waited for Dylan to laugh it off, to shut it down. Instead, he smirked and said, "Well, that's why I go out with you guys. I need some excitement in my life." Everyone laughed, even Dylan. I forced a smile, but inside it felt like someone had twisted a knife. Later, when I confronted him, he waved it off. "Relax, it was a joke. Don't be so sensitive." That was his favorite line whenever he crossed a boundary. Don't be so sensitive. I should have recognized it then for what it was, a dismissal, a warning sign that my feelings didn't matter. But I didn't. I told myself he didn't mean it. I told myself loyalty and love could make up for disrespect. So I stayed. I stayed because I thought stability was enough. Because I thought I was enough. But soon I would learn just how wrong I was. The night that shattered everything didn't begin with a storm. It began with exhaustion. It had been one of those weeks at work where deadlines piled up like bricks on my chest. All I wanted was a quiet Friday night, no noise, no drama, just takeout, and maybe a bad movie I could half sleep through. I'd set the table with 2 plates even though Dylan wasn't home yet. I kept glancing at my phone, wondering when he'd walk through the door. Part of me already knew the answer. He wasn't coming home the way I wanted him to. When he finally emerged from the bedroom, it wasn't in sweatpants or a t-shirt. It was in a black glittering dress shirt I'd never seen before, the kind that caught the light in sharp angles. His hair was styled cologne, heavy shoes, polished. He looked like he'd stepped out of someone else's life. "Wow," I said softly, blinking up from the couch. "You're dressed up." He didn't even look at me. He was fixing his collar in the mirror by the hallway, eyes flicking over his reflection like I wasn't even there. "Where are you headed?" I asked, setting my phone down. That's when he smirked, a cold, sharp little curve of his mouth that made my stomach twist. "Out," he said. Out where I pressed. Finally, his eyes met mine in the mirror. There was a glint there, something cruel, something rehearsed. "Don't wait up tonight," he said flatly. "I'm with someone better." For a second, I thought I misheard. My ears rang like the world had gone muffled underwater. What my voice cracked. He turned full on now and repeated it without a flinch. "I'm going out with someone who actually knows how to have fun. You should be grateful. Honestly, it's not like you could keep up." The room went dead silent. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, heat crawling up my neck. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to claw the truth out of him. Who? How long? Why? But the way he was looking at me told me everything I needed to know. He was daring me. He wanted me to beg. He wanted the scene, the chaos, the tears, something he could feed on later. Instead, I inhaled slowly, forced my voice steady, and said the only word I could muster. "Understood." Dylan blinked, thrown off by the calmness. For just a flicker, his smirk faltered. Then he rolled his eyes. "God, you're so boring," he muttered. "Whatever. Don't wait up." He grabbed his leather jacket, slung it over his shoulder, and strutted out the door. The sharp click of his polished shoes against the floor was like a gavel striking, sealing my sentence. The moment the door shut, I sat there frozen. The silence that followed was deafening. On the table, 2 plates sat waiting untouched. My appetite vanished, replaced by a hollow ache that spread through my chest. I pressed my hands against my thighs to stop them from trembling. How do you process someone you love looking you in the eye and telling you they'd rather be with someone better? I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours. The city outside buzzed faintly, cars passing, neighbors' muffled voices drifting through walls. Inside my apartment, it felt like the world had stopped. But beneath the sting, something unexpected stirred. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a bad joke. This wasn't even a rough patch. This was who Dylan was. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I realized I didn't have to keep living like this. I stood abruptly, as if some hidden gear inside me had finally clicked into place. My body moved before my mind caught up. I walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out the spare set of locks I'd bought months ago after a neighbor mentioned a break-in. I'd never gotten around to installing them. Funny how timing works. I laid them out on the counter, the metal glinting under the dim kitchen light. Then I glanced at this bedroom door, our shared space, our tangled mess of clothes and half-finished laundry. No, not our. Mine. I sat back down, forcing my breath to steady, staring at the locks. A quiet resolve began to settle over me, heavy but smurfagely comforting. Dylan thought he'd left me broken on that couch. He thought he'd returned to the same predictable, forgiving Ellen. But he was wrong. I wasn't going to fight for him. I wasn't going to beg for him. I was going to erase him. The night stretched long, but my decision didn't waver. By the time the sky outside began to pale with the first hints of dawn, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Dylan thought he could walk out and come back whenever he pleased. He thought I would wait. But this time when he came home, he wouldn't find the Ellen he expected. He wouldn't find a home at all. The morning after Dylan walked out, the apartment felt like a hollow shell. No sound of him rummaging through drawers, no whistling in the bathroom, no clutter of his sneakers by the door. Just silence. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee cooling between my palms. My eyes kept drifting to the shiny new locks I'd laid out the night before, cold silver, unblinking. For years, I thought love meant endurance. But staring at those locks, I realized love also meant boundaries, and mine had been trampled long enough. I stood, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work. The screwdriver shook in my hand at first, not from weakness, but from adrenaline. Every turn of the screw felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. One by one, the old locks came off. One by one, the new ones clicked into place. The sound was sharp, final. When it was done, I tested the door. Smooth, secure. Dylan's key would be useless now. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. For the first time in months, maybe years, the apartment felt like it was mine again. But the job wasn't finished. I moved into the bedroom. His side of the closet stared back at me, shirts crammed in unevenly belts, coiled on the floor, cologne bottles lined up like little soldiers. The smell hit me, his scent musky and arrogant. For a moment it stung. Then I pulled out a cardboard box. I didn't rage. I didn't rip his clothes or toss his belongings into garbage bags like some movie cliché. No, I folded everything neatly, shirt by shirt, pair of shoes by pair of shoes, his toothbrush, his cologne, the watch I'd bought him for his birthday. Every piece of Dylan's life with me went into those boxes. It wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. By the time I was done, 3 boxes sat stacked by the door. On top of them, I placed a single note in my cleanest handwriting. Don't come back. The keys won't work. That was it. No explanations, no apologies, no drama, just fact. I stepped back and looked at the pile. It was Smurfage how something so simple could carry so much weight. The apartment felt lighter, like I'd opened a window after years of suffocation. Later that day, my phone buzzed. Dylan, hey, where's my key? It's not working. I stared at the message, my pulse steady. My thumb hovered for a moment, then I locked the screen and set the phone face down. Minutes later, another buzz. Dylan, are you kidding me? What did you do? Still, I said nothing. The silence between us grew louder than any argument we'd ever had. By evening, his tone shifted. Dylan, look, I think you're overreacting. Can you just let me in so we can talk? I sipped my tea unmoved. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix things. That night, the apartment was so quiet it almost frightened me. No hairdryer humming, no half-empty coffee mugs cluttering the counter. No Dylan slouched on the couch scrolling endlessly through his phone. Just me, just peace. The days that followed blurred. Dylan kept texting, anger one moment, pleading the next. Dylan, wow, so you're just going to ignore me after everything I did for you? I actually laughed at that one. After everything he did for me, the irony was so sharp it cut cleaner than his betrayal. Still, I didn't reply. Instead, I called up a friend I hadn't seen in months. We met for drinks, and when I told him what had happened, I expected shock, maybe sympathy. Instead, he sighed and shook his head. Ellen, we all saw it. He never respected you. You just didn't want to see it. The words hit hard like a slap, but it was the kind of sting that wakes you up, not the kind that knocks you down. Piece by piece, I began piecing my life back together. I cooked meals I actually liked. Spicy curries Dylan used to whine were too much. I left my socks on the floor just because I could. I dusted off my guitar, the one Dylan once mocked as lame, and strummed until my fingers ached. At night, I slept deeply. No gnawing knot in my chest, no half listening for the door to slam. The silence wasn't frightening anymore. It was freedom. One evening, while brushing my hair, I caught my reflection in the mirror. There was something different in my eyes. Not sadness, not anger. Something sharper, stronger. Dylan thought walking out would break me. But all he did was unlock a part of me I'd forgotten, the part that remembered I was enough. The first rumor reached me by accident. It had been about 2 weeks since I changed the locks. I was at the gym, earbuds in, focused on the rhythm of my run, when someone tapped my shoulder. A girl I vaguely recognized from Dylan's old classes leaned close, smirking. So she whispered conspiratorially heard Dylan's big upgrade didn't work out. I blinked. Upgrade. She tilted her head, her words not mine. Don't worry, you didn't hear it from me. Then she walked away before I could ask another question. Upgrade. The word sat heavy on my tongue. He had called me boring, predictable, and then left me for someone better. I didn't know who she was yet, but apparently even that better hadn't lasted long. Later, a friend filled me in. Dylan's new flame wasn't some glittering prize. She was a bartender he'd met through one of his friends. Pretty outgoing, adored the nightlife. For a while, Dylan flaunted her all over social media, blurry photos in clubs, captions about feeling alive. But just as quickly, the post stopped. She dumped him, my friend said with a shrug. Apparently she thought he was fun until he started talking about moving in. Then she realized he wasn't much more than a paycheck-to-paycheck party boy. I shouldn't have felt anything, but I won't lie. There was a flicker of satisfaction. Not because I wanted him to hurt, but because it confirmed what I already knew: he had thrown away stability for an illusion. And now he was paying for it. Word spread. Dylan was bouncing between couches, begging old friends for favors. The roommates he'd abandoned wanted nothing to do with him. Even his classmates started pulling away something about how he burned too many bridges, always taking, but never giving. The last photo I stumbled across through a mutual friend's feed barely looked like him. His hair was messy, his hoodie stretched and faded. No more cologne, no more smug grin. Just a tired, hollow face, staring at the camera like he wasn't sure who he was anymore. Meanwhile, my life was moving forward. Work became easier to focus on without constant drama gnawing at me. I poured my energy into projects I'd been too drained to care about before. My boss noticed. 2 weeks later, I got a small promotion, nothing huge, but enough to make me proud of myself again. I started eating better, sleeping better. I picked up my old hobbies. I even joined a weekend hiking group, something Dylan once mocked as pointless cardio. One evening, a close friend looked me over and said, "You look lighter, like a weight's been lifted." And they were right. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dylan had left because he thought I wasn't exciting enough. He thought I was safe, predictable, boring. Yet here I was, thriving while he was drifting from couch to couch unwanted at the very parties he used to chase. Still, Dylan wasn't ready to let go. The texts kept coming, each one like smoke curling from a fire I'd already walked away from. "Dylan, I don't know why you're acting like this. You're being childish." Dylan. "So what, you're just done after everything?" Dylan, "I made a mistake, okay? But you can't just cut me out like I'm nothing." I didn't answer, not one word. Eventually, I muted his number. It wasn't just about ignoring him, it was about reclaiming silence, making it real. And oh, the silence was beautiful. For the first time in years, I woke up without a knot in my chest. I didn't scan my phone, dreading the roller coaster of his moods. I didn't brace myself for the sharp digs followed by sugary apologies. Instead, mornings were mine, evenings were mine. Piece by piece, I was becoming myself again. But Dylan wasn't done unraveling. Mutual acquaintances mentioned seeing him hanging around bars, trying too hard to charm women who brushed him off. Some nights he drowned himself in cheap drinks, slurring his way through conversations about how everyone had turned on him. I didn't seek these updates, but they found me, and each time I felt less and less pity. Because while his life was collapsing, mine was rebuilding. And I wasn't about to let him drag me back into his storm. One night I sat on my balcony, a glass of wine in hand, watching the city lights flicker. The air was cool, the silence steady. And for the first time in a long time, I whispered out loud, "I'm free." But deep down, I knew Dylan wasn't finished. People like him never leave quietly. It happened late on a Tuesday night. I'd just finished brushing my teeth, hair wrapped in a towel, when the pounding started. Not a polite knock, a frantic, angry hammering on the door. My stomach dropped before I even looked through the peephole. Dylan. His hoodie was pulled over his head strings, tight around his face, but I could still see the red rims of his eyes. His jaw was clenched, his posture rigid. For a moment, I thought he might try to kick the door in. I cracked it open just enough to look at him. "What do you want?" He shoved against the door like he might force his way inside. "Why aren't you answering me?" His voice was raw, almost frantic. "Because I said evenly, there's nothing left to say." His eyes widened like I'd slapped him. "Nothing left to say. Are you serious?" "We lived together for 2 years, Ellen. You can't just erase that." "You managed it pretty easily," I shot back. He flinched, but pressed on. "Look, I was stupid, okay? I got caught up in, I don't know, wanting more. But he didn't mean anything. Not really. You're the one who knows me. You're the one who stayed." I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "And when you had me, that wasn't enough. Your words, not mine." His face, twisted desperation leaking into anger. "So you're just going to throw it all away because of one mistake?" I shook my head. "You didn't slip, Dylan. You jumped." For a second, he looked like he might cry. His voice cracked when he said, "You're seriously going to let this be the end?" I stared at him, letting the silence stretch. Then I finally said it. "It ended the night you walked out." His composure broke. He dropped his hood, ran his hands through his messy hair. "God, you're so cold. You think you're perfect. You're not. You're just boring, predictable, safe. That's why I—" He stopped mid-sentence, catching himself. I raised an eyebrow. "That's why you what? Told me not to wait up while you went out with someone better." The words hung between us like smoke. His face crumpled, all bravado gone. "I didn't mean it like that," he whispered. "I was just trying to get a reaction out of you. You were so distant, so—" "No," I cut in. "I wasn't distant. I was steady. And you didn't want steady. You wanted chaos. You wanted someone to worship you until you got bored." His shoulders sagged. He looked at me like a drowning man spotting land. "Ellen, please. I can change. I'll do better. Just give me one more chance." I shook my head slowly. "You're only here because she left you, not because you suddenly realized my worth." That's not true, he pleaded. I swear it's not. It is, I said firmly. If she hadn't dumped you, you wouldn't be standing here right now. His face hardened again. Anger and shame mingled in his eyes. So that's it, you're just going to throw me away like trash. Without answering, I bent down, picked up one of the boxes I'd packed weeks ago, and shoved it into his arms. He stumbled back under the weight of it. This is the last time you stand on my doorstep, I said. My voice was calm but final. His jaw clenched, veins pulsing in his neck. You'll regret this. Nobody's going to love you the way I did. A bitter laugh escaped me. That's the point. I guided him backward, box still in his arms, and shut the door firmly in his face. For a moment, I leaned against the wood, breathing deeply. His muffled curses echoed in the hallway, then the fading sound of his retreating footsteps. Silence returned. I slid down to the floor, back against the door legs, stretched out. My chest was heaving, not with sadness, but with relief. A Smurfage quiet triumph. I'd stared into the eyes that once held me captive and walked away unshaken. For the first time, I truly believed I was free. And yet, a shadow of unease lingered. Dylan's words clawed at me. You'll regret this. Because I knew men like him don't leave gracefully. They linger like ghosts, desperate to remind you of their absence. I thought shutting the door on Dylan that night would be the end. But men like him rarely leave quietly. 2 weeks later, I found myself at a mutual friend's birthday dinner downtown. I almost skipped it, worried about running into him, but I convinced myself enough time had passed. I deserved a normal night. The restaurant was buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. I'd just sat down ordering a glass of wine when I felt eyes on me. I turned and there he was. Dylan. He sat at the bar alone, hunched over a drink. His hoodie was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his once proud posture deflated. But when his gaze landed on me, his whole body snapped upright like he'd just spotted a lifeline. Ellen, he breathed as he scrambled off the stool. He practically stumbled across the room, ignoring the stares of Smurfagers. My friends went quiet, eyes darting between us. I forced a steady expression, though my pulse quickened. Dylan reached me, his voice shaking. Finally. I've been trying to get you to talk to me for weeks. Please, just 5 minutes. Outside. Please. I sighed, every instinct screaming to refuse. But the room was already watching, and I didn't want to make a scene. So I nodded stiffly and followed him out to the sidewalk. The second the door closed behind us, he launched into it. I was wrong, he blurted. About everything about her, about us. I didn't mean it when I said you weren't enough. You were more than enough. I don't know, I panicked. I thought I wanted freedom, excitement, but none of it means anything without you. His voice cracked, and for the first time I saw tears shimmer in his eyes. He clutched at my hands like his life depended on it. I miss us, he whispered. I miss you. Please, Ellen, just give me another chance. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove it to you. For a moment I studied him. This broken man in front of me was not the Dylan I'd once loved, but he wasn't a Smurfy either. He was the same person who looked me in the eye and told me he was with someone better. And now he was begging on the street like a child who'd lost his favorite toy. I pulled my hands free. My voice was steady quiet. You're only here because she didn't work out, not because you suddenly realized my worth. That's not true, he protested, shaking his head furiously. I swear it's not. It is, I said firmly. If she hadn't dumped you, you wouldn't be here, and I won't be your backup plan. Not now. Not ever. His face crumpled. So that's it. You're really done with me. Yes, I said, final as stone. I was done the night you walked out. You just didn't realize it yet. He stared at me, searching for a crack in my resolve, but there wasn't one. His shoulders slumped. A choked laugh escaped him, bitter and broken. You're going to regret this, he muttered. I shook my head slowly. No. The only thing I regret is wasting as much time as I did. That hit him harder than any scream could have. His face twisted, and without another word, he spun on his heel and stormed down the street, shoulders hunched, humiliation clinging to him like a second skin. I stood there watching him disappear into the night. For the first time, I felt nothing. No ache, no longing, not even anger. Just peace. When I returned inside, my friends were waiting. One raised an eyebrow, silently asking if I was okay. I nodded, sat back down, and took a sip of my wine. The laughter around the table swelled again, warm and inviting. And I realized something profound. Dylan had been the storm cloud hanging over my life, and now he was gone. Completely gone. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need him to suffer. The way his own choices had unraveled him was punishment enough. All I needed was this moment, this peace. That night, as I walked home under the glow of streetlights, I whispered to myself, nobody will ever love me the way he did. I paused, smiled softly, and added, and that's exactly